All right, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. We'll get started where everyone else does as far as earliest childhood memory. What are we getting into?
Oh my gosh. So I was born in June in 1954,
There we go.
and my first memory was being taken out of the back seat of the car and carried in on a very cold but sunny day into a building. And I asked my mother about it, and she said that was the day I got baptized.
Wow. Seems like a wonderful day. You still remember it.
I do. I think it was the luncheon afterwards.
Okay, okay. As far as your childhood went, did you grow up around a lot of family? Was it just your parents? What was the scenario living there?
Well, I my family on my father's side is Estonian, and
Okay.
there was a group of Estonians that had a community they named Utopia.
Hey.
And there were 127 Estonians living there. And I think it was basically because, maybe one or two families ended up in that area, and then there were homesteads available,
Yeah.
and people just gravitated to uh, people that spoke the way they spoke and had similar customs.
Yeah. What
So
state was this in?
this was in Montana,
Okay.
in north central Montana.
Yeah.
Most people were dryland wheat farmers or trying to prove up homesteads.
Okay.
And because of the Dust Bowl in the 30s, a lot of them moved away.
Okay.
My grandparents had six children, and of the six, only one actually moved away from the area
Okay.
later on. So
Yeah.
I was surrounded by a lot of cousins. But the cousins that moved, I mean, they were the most intriguing, and we all seriously waited for them to come and visit.
Yeah. So having all that family around, was it a lot of acres between you? Was it farms? What was the look there, the lay of the land?
Well, most of them were farmers.
Right.
My father wasn't. He was a road builder.
Okay.
And so we lived in town, and the farm was 3 miles away where my grandmother lived.
Hmm.
And most of my cousins lived within a 20-mile radius. So we got together quite a bit.
Oh, very nice.
And yeah, it kind of wreaked a little havoc. We still claim, all of us, even in our middle years, that we really thought chickens could fly, because we did launch a few off of the roof of one of the buildings on the farm.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and there was a ram named Samson that if any kid went into the outhouse
Yeah.
to use the facilities, another kid would let the gate loose, and Samson would go over and like knock his head against the outhouse. So
He
you
knew
lived
his
in there.
job.
Yeah. So that was, the kind of fun we had.
Yeah, as far as a road builder goes, I don't know a whole bunch about it, but I feel like in the town, once you've built the roads, you gotta travel with whoever's building roads. So was he home a lot? Where is he working?
Actually, he was home in the winter, but we traveled with him to road jobs in the summer.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, so we built roads all over the state. Some of them were small, and some of them were larger.
Yeah.
Um, some of my other early recollections are the old-fashioned blow-up swimming pool. The little two-ring
Yeah.
swimming pool. When I was a toddler, I remember my brother putting fish in there, live fish,
Okay.
because we were camped along a creek. And so it was, I can remember being thrilled to be in there with moving objects.
Yeah.
And my mother was not too happy that I was diving face first into water
Yeah.
to grab fish. But it was really great because we got to live all over the state. We got to see all kinds of different communities
Yeah.
and different ways people lived.
Hmm.
And one of my first jobs was to hand my dad tools while he
Okay.
was repairing equipment.
Yeah. So
And to this day, I have a little bit of a heart race over a 5/8 and a 3/4 inch wrench. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, do I really know this? You know?
that's wonderful. I feel for myself growing up, I was definitely in a bubble where I just played a bunch of sports. We hung out with family. We had family dinners on Wednesday with my grandparents, and then Sunday everyone would get together. And I just had the assumption that like everybody, that's just what everybody did. They had 2 weeks of vacation and everything was just kind of hunky dory because I was living in this bubble. When you were traveling around the state so much, like what did you pick up from different communities? What did you see going on?
Um, I I think that some of the most poignant memories I have are going to powwows as a
Okay.
young child and really getting to be just connected to Indian country.
Yeah.
And that was pretty exciting. My first bear experience
Uh-oh.
was in on one of the road jobs where this bear was wandering through and kind of knocking into things and looking around um, and just the crazy places we lived in the summer. I mean, my dad would rent the most insane places to live.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I thought it was great. And my mother was just, she'd arrive with a bucket full of cleaners, to just like scrub down the place because it
Yeah.
was always pretty suspect. But it was a great childhood.
Yeah.
I learned the edible berries in the woods because of the bears. I would watch them pick, like what they would pick, I figured I could eat too. So,
So you're within seeing distance of the bear and you're not turning tail and running, you're just watching what they're doing?
yeah, I figured it was safer to sit there and be quiet than, but
That makes sense. So as far as a powwow goes, never been to one myself. I know whenever we're in town, it's usually either as we're landing or as we're leaving Montana. But what's a powwow?
generally it's a opportunity for people to get together and dance
Okay.
and listen to songs, tribal songs. Also play hand game, which is a particularly interesting, complex game played mostly uh, similar but different within each tribe. I think there are intertribal competitions.
Okay.
And the dances are men usually do like the grass dance, the fancy dance. Women do women's traditional and also the jingle dress dance, which is, and they're healing dances,
Okay.
and they are also just a wonderful time for people to intertribal people getting together,
Yeah.
um, and just the regalia, the fact that people spend months creating their regalia to dance in.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
So it's not like a weekly thing or a monthly thing. This comes around a couple times a year, or how do you know when it's coming up?
Most tribes in this area have their dates sort of solidified, and you
Okay.
know that Indian Days in Browning is always the weekend after the 4th, and the local Elmo powwow is usually the third or fourth week in June.
Okay.
But there are some winter dances that are put on by college students,
Okay.
but mostly it's summer.
Gotcha. What and so when you were growing up in Montana, did the Indian presence, as far as like the amount of land they had, has that grown or shrunk since you've been there?
I think it's been relatively stable,
Okay.
as far as because of treaties.
Yeah.
Um, and like one of the treaties I am aware of that was actually signed in 1855. I think it was like the 1st of October or somewhere in there.
Okay.
That one was just, every once in a while there will be a presentation about the treaty. There will be an opportunity for people to, kind of discuss it and look at it.
Yeah.
But there has been change. There has been some changes
Hmm.
um, on this reservation that I live on.
Yeah.
Um, the land was open to homesteaders in 1915 or 1917. So
Okay.
this is traditionally and treaty wise the consolidated Salish, Sanka, and Kalis Bay people's land.
Okay.
However, it was open to homesteaders, and so so there is a big percentage of white population on this reservation.
And what would be the purpose of opening it up to homesteaders?
I think it's because well, it's kind of a history thing, and I might be a little vague on this.
Hey, that's all right.
Um, but I think one of the things is that people realized that this was an incredibly fertile valley,
Okay.
and it was, really an opportunity. And there was, I'm spacing the guy's name out, and I know it well, but it's not coming to me right now. There
Yeah.
was a senator who, Senator Dawes, the
Okay.
Dawes Act,
That
and he was petitioned by a lot of people to sort of set up opportunities, because white people were looking at natives and they were saying, well, they don't have gardens and they don't have this and that, so they should every native family should have a place to grow a garden.
okay.
Well, that's a white concept being
Yes.
applied to tribal people,
Yeah.
and it and it was a very miserable failure in terms of, I guess, who you talk to. But
Right.
anyway, that was all kind of part of that.
Yeah.
Who is this?
This is my daughter Adeline.
Hi, Adeline. I didn't get to meet you when you were in Montana.
Yeah, she met Dax when we were in Montana. We were hanging out just throwing rocks. You're gonna say bye?
See you later. Happy to meet you.
So when you're growing up, are your schools intertwined with is Indians the correct term, or what's the proper terminology for
I think a lot of
Native
different
Americans?
many people have different views on that.
Okay.
The people that I hang out with prefer American Indian.
American Indian. All right. There we go.
And the safe thing to say is Indian country, because that is a legal term.
Okay. We're learning lots today.
That's
So
right.
so at your schools that you went to, or did you go to school? Was it homeschooling because you're on the road, or that was more so the summer? What did school look like?
School. My mother, as I said before, got tired of the houses my dad rented.
Yeah.
And she put her foot down and said I was going to school in the town that her sister lived in.
Okay.
So, so we went there. And my dad had lived there before full time. My parents also owned a bar before I was born.
Okay. So your
Uh,
parents owned a bar and a farm. I feel like that's a morning day activity and then a night activity.
I know it was 24 hours of fun. Excuse me while I take a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I feel that there is a lot more to be learned at the developing ages in Montana. How did it feel going through school as far as what you were learning in history or just what was going on in current events?
Well, that's interesting because the community I was growing up in, or going to school in the winters, is very small and isolated in a part of the state that is not, you know, a highlight. I mean, most people don't go there.
Yeah.
And so, from a young age, I felt really responsible to be aware and know what was going on in the world. So
Really?
I would get up every morning and either listen to the news on the radio or the television,
Okay.
and I would read whatever I could when I got to school.
Yeah.
in terms of like U.S. News and World Report or Newsweek or whatever magazines the library had.
Yeah.
And and I will tell you, I was the obnoxious child that was the first one at school every day. The janitor actually would let me in.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like, just kind of really felt that it was important because I was isolated and we were isolated to
Yeah.
know what was going on in the world.
Okay. And was that something that it was a conversation with your parents and you're like, "Hey, I need to learn more about this." Your friends, what spurred that idea?
Well, okay, here's total transparency. I was pretty close to being semi-feral as a
Okay.
child.
Yep.
Um, uh, like with the summer road jobs, they'd, I'd get back home or when it was dark.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the things that we did with the early part of the process with the roads was burning slash piles.
Okay, that
We're,
sounds healthy.
yeah, it was pretty fun. We'd have these giant piles of trees that they'd have to cut down in order to make room for the road.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty cool deal. And I got to, sit in the pickup with my dad and monitor the fires.
Yeah.
Really, I really felt like I was, quite official.
Hmm.
Um, but they didn't. I mean, I think they just sort of let me run my own course.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a older brother and sister that are 11 and 12 years older. And I think both my parents were like, oh my God, here we are, we're starting again. And this one is, a handful. So they would just pretty much let me do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was a small town and we had bicycles. So we went as far as we could possibly go with a canteen of water and a, a first aid kit. I mean, we
Okay.
were organized children. We figured we needed water and potentially a snake bite kit. Like that was the most exotic thing. And we would put together these things that we thought would, these medical devices
Yeah.
we invented that would save us from, a deadly bite from a rattlesnake.
Love it. Love it. And I think I'm definitely a helicopter parent and I try not to be like, "Oh, do this, do this, do this." Because I feel like do actually going out and doing it, you're going to learn so much more. You can rely on yourself and you have that confidence. And I think that's an incredible thing that a lot of our kids are missing these days.
Well, it's an interesting time, and I don't know how you do a great balance
Yeah.
of, doing a little bit of the helicopter, but at the same time providing opportunities for kids to just be a little rogue.
Yeah,
I don't know.
we try to go to a lot of spaces where there's forest and they can just go and play, but just in case I can go find them in a couple of minutes in case I get a little bit worried. So when you're in school, is there a counselor that says, "Hey, this is the path that you should go," or are you playing sports? What's that time of our life looking like?
Well, in school, this was before Title IX for
Okay.
me. And so there was, for girls, the only opportunity was track.
Okay.
So we all went out for track. And I mostly did field sports.
Okay.
Uh, the joke in town, my maiden name was Loss.
Hmm.
And the joke in town is if they see anybody running really bad, they say, "Oh, you run like a lass." Our family, we were not cut out to be runners,
Yeah.
um, but anyway, that was great. That was a wonderful time, and
Yeah.
it was always, in Montana, spring sports are always questionable because it's like you don't know if you're going to start out the day with sunshine, but before noon there's a snow squall,
Right.
and so it's always, something interesting.
What would you say your favorite memory from track was?
Um, I think one of my favorite memories was, and this is really off the wall. Um, our coach was this amazing woman athlete,
Okay.
and she was demonstrating the pole vault while she was 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
And she did very well.
That's incredible. Because that's a lot of core.
It
I
is.
oh
And
wow.
it's like this little ball in the center that you wouldn't think would be that aerodynamic.
Yeah. Hey, maybe it was an advantage. It brought her weight down a little bit more. Maybe it helped her out.
Maybe it did, but it was like we were all just like standing there with our mouths open and cheering when she landed. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope the statute of limitations is over on that story. I don't want her family to be like, what?
Yes, let's we'll double check, make sure the child ended up all right, and then we're good to go. I mentioned before that I went on a lot of vacations as a child. Totally took them for granted. We would go to museums and we'd go on hikes. And I'd say, "What do we do?" Like, okay, yes, I'm hanging out with my cousins, but why am I reading this thing about this architecture or whatever it was? When you went on vacations, did you enjoy them? Were you hanging out with family? What were vacations like for you?
Honestly, we in my childhood we went on one vacation.
Okay, easy to
Uh,
remember.
Mostly we would, like, if it was a weekend and it was family time,
Yeah.
we'd drive around looking for gravel pits
Ooh.
because gravel, was a pretty important element in the world of road building.
So right from there, that's gonna be they could how would they go acquiring the gravel pit at that point? Your dad would just go put it in a dump truck, or how does that work?
Well, generally you'd contract with the landowner,
Okay.
um, or if you had, like, if it, let's say the county had the contract with the landowner, then you'd
Yeah.
negotiate. And there's two ways of getting gravel. First of all, you get pit run,
Okay.
which is just scooped out of the ground. It's a mixture of fines. The rocks can be huge. They're not, they have to go through a crusher in order
Yeah.
to be a uniform size.
Okay. Gotcha.
And the number of sides to a piece of gravel is kind of important in terms of how it's going to be used
Really?
and where it's going to be used. So, like, at one point in my more recent history, I was a county commissioner, and we were doing some road work, some
Yeah.
jobs, and it required gravel that had 11 cut sides.
That seems like a lot.
It seemed like a lot to me too, and I think it was because of really needing compaction. Like,
Okay.
all of those broken edges would
Yeah.
compact together.
Gotcha. I was similar kind of topic, but the technology behind those all those things. I was watching something on the gravel for trains where it has to be big enough and irregular shape enough so that it can kind of squish together but not compact. And it's just somebody put in a lot of work to figure out all these things, and I'm glad that they did. Um, when you're going through high school, is there someone saying, "Hey, let's send you off to college. I want you to pick up this trades job." What opportunities are available for you?
Well, this is where the path gets a little
All
shaky.
right, I'm here for it.
I was not the greatest student. I
Okay.
think I was probably ADD before that was even understood.
Yeah. Before it was cool, you were doing
Yeah.
it.
And at one point in third grade, I was helping the teacher with all these creative projects in the room, but I noticed that I was sitting in a row with one other kid. And then I realized I'm looking at the rows and I'm going, oh, there's 5 rows. A students are in row one. B students are in row two. C students, D students. I was in the fifth row, me
Hey,
and one
let's
other
go.
kid. so that was quite interesting to discover. But in high school, when I really got to a point where I could select a couple of electives and I could
Yeah.
read on my own, um, with some diligence, I got pretty excited and focused. Oh, my since my sister and brother were older, they
Yeah.
brought books home from college. And actually, I was in elementary when my sister brought home Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols.
Okay. I have not read that. What's that about?
It's just about basically symbols in and archetypes in the study of psychology and the
Okay.
symbolism that we have in terms of mythology and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got pretty excited about that. And when it came time for graduation, I just didn't know that I was college material.
Hmm.
So I was interviewed to have a job as a ticket agent for Delta Airlines.
All right. So is that at the airport or are you flying around?
No, it would be at the airport and it would have been in Denver.
Okay.
Well, that was right before I got involved in the campaign for governor. For I was helping one of the people running for governor,
Well, let's go.
and I said, I can't move out of state. I'm pretty connected to what's happening here, and I'm thinking that there's just a lot of important things going on, and we were
Yeah.
on the edge of having a constitutional convention. We
Okay.
were we were revamping the constitution of the state,
Yeah.
and so that was kind of an underlying energy of awareness for people my age. And I didn't get really involved, but it was something quite interesting.
I do remember part of our conversation that when we did talk was about the Montana Constitution, and I'm like, I had no idea individual states had that. I need to I need to learn up on all that is going on. There's more than what I was just taught in school. So for you, why were politics so important at that time?
Well, I think it's because my father was a legislator as well. He
Wow,
was in, he was in
doing
the
it
House.
all.
I know. He was a busy guy. And there were a few years in the winter that we would move to Helena, to the capital
Okay,
city. And after school, I was within walking distance of the capital. So I would just walk over
that's
and
great.
basically, like if there was a committee meeting, I'd go in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're like, whose errant child is this? There's a pop machine in the basement. Go find something to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just pretty interesting. And I think that part of it was that um, because of growing up in a fairly rural area and experiencing different parts of the state, I just started to really put together how important clean water was,
Okay.
and how Montana has a history, a long and important history of mining and of timber.
Yeah.
And we are a resource based state, and that is, I just think that needs to be in balance.
So what are the consequences for the mine like what changes happen because the mining and the forestry like what's the negative that happens?
Well, we have a couple of Superfund sites, and the technology has changed. One of the there was a gold mine it's called heap leach mining,
Okay.
and in the 20s it used to happen in large vats that almost looked like a whiskey vat but bigger,
Okay.
and they'd put the ore in there and the cyanide cocktail, and they would leach the gold out of it, and it was contained in those vats. Well, now they make these large pits, they line them with a rubberized material, and they virtually follow the same process but on a larger scale.
Oh, okay. I
And
So now that you mention that, I feel like I've seen that being done in Africa and kind of around rural farms, and you see like the big vats and the big ponds, and like a small town maybe a couple miles away, and they're like, "Hey, this town used to be massive. Everyone died because of all these issues." I didn't know that that was happening here.
Yeah, it's kind of scattered and it depends on the integrity of the companies and
Right.
how well they take care of things. Um, and I don't know, I'm not aware of anything happening right now, but I do know that a few years ago, some of the leach pads leaked into the groundwater, into the aquifers
Oh,
in a
great.
reservation area, and it ruined the water supply for a small community. And I don't know if you've heard about this statement, this old idiom,
Yeah.
but in the West, it's whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting.
Okay.
So water rights are a big, an important deal, and protecting water
Yeah.
and keeping it clean, and it requires a lot of good policy.
Mm.
There's a lake in northwest of where you were called Lake Koocanusta, which
Okay.
is named after a very strong tribal Sanka leader or Kootenai leader. And that lake is being affected by mill runoff or mining runoff from Canada.
Okay.
So there's a lot of back and forth and, looking at regulations and really working hard to make sure that the water that we have in Montana is clean. And that's actually part of the Constitution, that as a human right, we have the right to clean air and clean water.
Which doesn't seem like too wild of an ask.
No, it's not too bad. But then now the whole question that seems to be coming up is we're seeing a lot of data centers being created to support AI.
Yeah.
And that requires a tremendous amount of electricity and water.
So how does it's the water is run through to cool the system, and then it goes back to the lake, and the water is just too hot, and that's bad for the reservoir, or what's the, I guess, the usage of the water?
Well, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say anything you know, too solid. But I think that it's one, there's a lot of evaporation.
Okay.
Two, and anytime you are returning water to a source, you have to make sure that it hasn't been contaminated by, you
Right.
know, heavy metals or whatever.
Yeah.
And and the electricity use is really high, and the question is, okay, how much of that is going to fall in the laps of the ratepayers and how much of it is going to be paid for by
Right.
the business? And so it's just, I don't know, I find it to be fascinating that we're living in this time where we're making these tremendous uh, jumps in terms of technology,
Yeah.
and yet at the same time we are creatures of earth.
Mhm.
We depend on our food from the ground.
Yeah.
um, my uh, my son is a farmer, and it's like he's still doing the dryland wheat farm process,
Yeah.
but they've got auto steer on the tractors. So it's quite an interesting opportunity to find balance. And
Well,
I think,
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's such a disconnect because the way we used to get our meat is like we would just go to the store, and the food would come back, and we put it in our fridge, and then I don't know when I found this out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that burger came from the cow." I'm like, "What?" Wait, I thought this comes from the store. I just order it from the restaurant, and then it's on my plate. What do you mean from the cow? But it's almost will have to be too late, because generally people don't make changes until they feel it. And when we feel there not being enough food, like that's going to be too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of dominoes that fall over first, but we're not going to feel those dominoes. Yes, there's going to be people talking about it, but I feel that hopefully the success of AI will be able to tell people like we got a better way and this is what's happening. But other than that, I think people are screaming from the hilltops, but it's just not getting through.
Well, and I think that oftentimes as humans, at any given moment, we think we're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
and it takes a few years to figure it out. I mean, I keep hearing about the wonders of lab grown meat, and it's like, ew.
We do a really good job of it. There's lots of good regenerative farming around. That does a wonderful job. And I would say yes, the technology stuff is pretty cool, but there's just a lot of work. So I used to do pipeline and it was natural gas, and we're putting 34-inch in diameter pipe in the ground. And yes, we're supposed to put it on soft ground, but we can't get into the hole sometimes. And then you could see the bucket scraping on just a massive rock. And they're like, hey, throw some sandbags on top of there, and hopefully this pipe doesn't get scratched. And then sometimes you had to paint some spots with some particular um it was just a paint that covered up the metal, but no, there was always like a thin piece of pipe or a rock that was things that were done improperly all the time. And I imagine with the mining, with all these types of things, it just happens, and people are like, well, it doesn't seem like everyone's upset about it, so we'll just keep moving ahead.
Well, and sometimes, like a few years ago, they started monitoring the pipelines with broadband internet.
Okay,
So they could, they could put a little camera out there. They could
yeah,
put a little pressure gauge to see if there's, a weak spot in the pipes or
yeah.
whatever. So that's kind of a cool way to use.
So there was two different jobs that I would do. One of them was putting in new pipe. So say, actually a lot of when the protests were happening in, I don't remember when the last pipeline protests were, but it must have been like 7 or so years ago. They came to where I was working, and so we were putting in fresh new pipe because they got the right of way. And then my jobs after that was taking out the old pipe because there was holes, or they called them Jeeps, but it was thin metal that there could be an issue. And it's like this they're like, "Oh yeah, we got work for forever because there's so many of these problems." I'm like, "That's not good." Yes, everyone's really happy about work, but there's just so many spots where there could be problems with it. So it'll be very interesting to see because I've been out of it for 4 years now, to see if they've figured out a better way to do it. And any electrical line that's next to a pipe, that's just sucking off the metal and it's just eroding it. So hopefully that infrastructure is going well, but we'll see.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we used to have to put in anodes next to it and connect it to the pipe to even out whatever the electrical current was. But we were maybe doing 2 or 3 a week, and there's hundreds of thousands of miles that is next to high voltage wire. But just another thing for us to think about.
Well, and definitely, once again, coordination between the two industries.
Yes. Yes.
Like, okay, we get this. This is a relationship that needs to be tended to carefully.
Yeah. So back it up just a hair. What were you doing for the political party that you were running with, or like what were you involved in there?
Um, at that time when I was young, I was just basically helping out a candidate that I felt was going to be a really good opportunity for the state.
Okay.
And there was actually my birthday landed on the primary election,
Okay.
and that was the first year I could vote. So I got to sign up before. So I got to actually vote for the first time
That's great.
on my birthday. My name was actually on the ballot because I was running for precinct committee woman.
Hey.
So that was pretty cool. And the exciting thing was I got to vote for Shirley Chisholm for president in the primary election.
Wow.
She was a representative from New York State and
Okay.
ran for president in 1972.
Wow.
And so that was like, to me, that was a pretty momentous time in the world.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I ended up going to college. My first year was in a program called Round River,
Okay.
which was an environmental sort of experimental alternative education. And basically, we the first week we got together, there was 100 of us in the program.
Yeah.
We met each other, we went to our rooms and got our backpacks, and we went backpacking for 2 weeks. And we as groups, we were broken down into groups of 20, and
Okay.
we read books and had discussions and hiked and looked at the botany and the geology and the animals. And we just had this year of looking at the holistic look of tying education to not only to the environment, but to our surroundings and our understanding and um, our whole place of, who are we humans in terms of the cosmos? Where do
Yeah.
we land? What do we do? And it was incredible. And it actually, when I first went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to study. And I was, going to all of these different uh, conversations with the professors and all of this work. And it finally dawned on me that I wanted to study world religions.
Okay.
And so after that year, that's what I ended up doing, was studying basically mythology and mostly ancient religions.
Okay. How did your perspective on life change in that first year of college? What perceptions did you have, and then how did that kind of change within that year?
One of the things that the program hadn't anticipated was the political climate in the early 70s
Okay.
and the effects of the Vietnam War
Yeah.
on our psyches.
Yeah.
And so people were a little agitated about that. And I think the most important thing I took away from that year of alternative education was, number one, always be open to opportunities to learn.
Okay.
Um, and any book that I may run into, it's like there's something in there that will be of value.
Uh-huh.
And the biggest thing is the people that were in the program. We had a 50th year anniversary a couple of years ago,
Oh, so fun.
and 7 of us the next year who had been friends in that program spent 7 days in Colorado hiking and getting just sharing stories and having a great time
Yeah.
at one of the women's cabins. And and there's been a couple of smaller group meetings since then, and it's just this amazing thing. And the professors we had then were, a lot of them have passed recently, but people kind of kept in touch with what they had been writing and
Yeah.
publishing. Most everybody that were in that program ended up following really different and varied paths. A lot of them were ended up in medical, like doctors and PAs. A lot of people became stayed with the university sort of and became professors.
Okay.
And I'm still sitting in a gravel pit.
I'm gonna sidetrack just a hair because I'm very interested, especially with the climate where we are now. how long did it take people when we went into Vietnam to be like, like this is not right? Was it kind of split from the beginning? What did it just take a little time to get there? What was your feeling around that?
Well, I was pretty young when it started. I think it kind of started in 1965 or 66.
Yeah.
And so I think that things really became a level of awareness that was kind of culturally tipping, and people were really being aware of it was probably in 1969,
Okay.
after the Tet Offensive.
Hmm.
And this was the first war that I think was brought into our homes every night.
Right.
We'd see footage, and it was really hard. And it was, all my friends from high school. The biggest moment for the boys was getting their draft number.
Oh man.
And my best friend's brother's number was one, and
Not a good number.
he just immediately joined the Coast Guard. I mean, it was like, just it was a big deal. And in our 50th reunion recently, it was interesting because we were in a large group meeting,
Yeah.
everybody that came, and somebody just out of the blue said 295. And
Okay.
some other man on the other side of the room said 76.
Hmm.
And they were still that number that showed up on a card that said,
Right.
you will be drafted when this number comes up, was still a part of their lives. I mean, it was way
Yeah.
before the Army became all volunteer.
Right. I imagine that if it was not volunteer now, there would be a lot more people knowledgeable or frustrated or just once again closer to the psyche if we had that going on now. But I can't even imagine that. Oh, I am happy you're 18. Now you have the opportunity to die because a couple people think it's a good idea that we bring freedom over to another country.
Well, and I think one of the things that was the most detrimental was the level of fear.
Okay.
And it's like fear is a motivator, but it's also reaches a point where it stops things.
Yeah.
It's a freezing point as well.
Hmm.
And I think that that's one of the things that I try to keep in mind with all the commotion that we're in the middle of now is operate from our hearts, be as
Right.
useful as we can,
Yeah.
and really stay connected to your community, and be aware of what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I don't know if you know the stuff going in Chicago right now, but I have people that are in the protests against a certain ICE building, and then I also, yeah, hope not get flagged. Know the people inside the building too. It's just, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk to you, and then I'm gonna talk to you, and then it's just you guys are both so angry, but we are in the US. Usually the way we solve things is from talking. That's how it's going to get better, but it seems that it has to come to a head. So when you were going through the Vietnam, were all the teachers against it? Were some against it? I just assumed there wasn't too many um that was for it in the schools, but did you hear any of that?
A little bit. And the really hard thing was the guys that came back, because the culture was so in an uproar, they were really treated badly,
Yeah,
as if they were the ones creating the havoc.
right.
And that was awful. There was a organized group on campus called Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
Okay.
And they were really so much demonstrations, but they would show up in mass. They would talk about what was going on, what was wrong, and what was just.
Right.
And and that was really a helpful thing for people who had actually been there
Hmm.
and were able to talk about um, how precious life is and how um, how we are so violent. I mean, it's and it's not new. I
Yeah.
mean, it's it. I watched a documentary this week on Genghis
Genghis
Khan.
Khan. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just really drove home the fact that even in the culture that I am genetically connected to,
Hmm.
which is the Finno-Ugrics, they were an incredibly warring people that came down from the from the north in Siberia and just swept down through Turkey and up into Finland. And I mean, and that's how things changed then. That's
Yeah.
how, it's like, as horrible as it is, it also gives us opportunities to understand new ways of looking at things
Yeah.
or
Well,
different
I,
cultures.
exactly on that topic, I was listening and they were talking about how he would go through a town or a city or wherever it is. Yes, he killed a bunch of people, but he would put so and so in power, but he wasn't an occupying force because he said I don't have his quote, but that's not how you would rule a city. Yes, he would kind of put them into submission by killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. But he realized pretty quickly that occupying a place wasn't really going to change the culture or the people or the however many thousands of years beforehand you were there. But even now, we seem to be like, oh, we're going to occupy this. We're going to bring them freedom and then we'll just leave. But we have not done that successfully. I don't know if ever, but we're going to keep trying. We're gonna see how it goes. And for me, I thought Iraq and Afghanistan was this totally new concept. Oh, things just went awry, things or this, and now the more that I learn, it's like we've been here, folks. This is not new stuff. Um, so when you're more or less seeing those kinds of things, uh I wouldn't necessarily say there's a distrust in government, but I'm just interested how things get pushed through and how things happen. So when you were at school, did you figure out like, oh, this is how it really works, or what were you seeing there?
I think one of the things I was seeing at the time was the importance of good policy.
Okay.
And so when no matter what party is involved, the the bills need to be written with integrity
Hmm.
that become law.
Okay.
And in my working life, I realized that some of the bills that are being um, uh, acted on and becoming law now
Yeah.
are basically written by corporations to their benefit.
Right.
And and it's like, so they'll write a law that only they can get the funding for.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, that's the capitalist system, but we need to make sure that things benefit as many people as possible.
Right.
And I think that's where responsibility in communities becomes so important.
Hmm.
It's like it all starts in your community. It all starts with, the mayor and the city council people. It starts with conversations
Okay.
and going to public meetings with the county commissioners and where they're talking about a new development. Now, that may not be your interest, but if you go and you listen and you realize that this new development, which may be fun and interesting, is going to have an impact on wetlands. It's going to have an impact on the traffic pattern.
Yeah.
And so I think that on a level of community, it's just making sure you're making good decisions and your neighbors, you're connected. And right now that's really hard to do because people are so polarized.
Yeah.
And so it's just important to connect where you can. One of the things that's happening in my community right now is people are doing diaper drives.
Okay.
And, that sounds kind of silly. And it's for both ends of the spectrum,
Yeah.
babies and old people. And it's just, it's a little bit of a donation. It's coordinating. It's saying, okay, this group over here of ladies who go to this church, they've gathered up this. So,
Yeah.
this other group comes and collects all of the gatherings, and then they distribute it either through the food bank or through, some program.
Okay.
And that just reinforces that we are all humans. We're here in this, we're here in this community, and we all want to see the best of it. And
Yeah.
if we can expand that vision into the state and into the nation, and and just really get, I don't know, get a handle on what we've managed to let go of.
And do you think that there's a conscious effort from a small group of people to kind of keep the middle class just either busy working or tired or watching Netflix and separated, or you think that's just the result of always chasing profits?
I think it's a little of both, I would
Okay.
guess, because you have to keep people happy, and in the '80s that meant offering them choices of blue, white, or pink toilet paper.
Yeah.
And it's like I think we felt like for a while there was, it's like we as con our economy runs on consumers,
Right.
so the more we buy the better. And so we think our freedom is at the grocery store and what we choose. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I just, it's interesting because we still need stuff.
Right.
I'm not going to learn to weave my own carpets, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, I think, communication, balance, and just really strengthening where you live.
Hmm.
uh, I've been hearing about the buildings in Chicago and some of the stories of people being absolutely terrified,
Yeah.
little children zip tied. I mean, we've got a responsibility to these babies,
Yeah.
all of us, to make sure that they are psychically healthy, that their little psyches are able to move forward and be a productive, happy person.
Yeah.
That just breaks my heart to see what we're putting kids through.
Yeah. When you were going through your religious studies, um, what did you see since it was like ancient mythology? What did you see that was still portraying itself today, or like what did you take out of that for your schooling?
I think that one of the things I've felt and discovered is that mythology is actually, um, a, a very valuable story. We spent millennia sitting around campfires as people sitting outside looking at the stars, telling stories. And just a quick example, in Greek mythology, when they had to overthrow the Titans,
Okay.
it's basically telling us that there will be a point in our lives where we have to say no to the authorities, to the elder generation. Do it honorably, treat them as elders, but know that time moves forward, and that what is necessary and important to one generation may mean nothing to the next.
Okay.
And I kind of see that. I see people my age saying, well, these young people just aren't picking up and taking over in the community, or they're not, being a part of the politics. And it's like, I keep saying to them, they they don't, it's not the same vision.
Yeah.
What you see as this warm pot of coffee, they see as a cold pile of grounds. It's their vision is different and important, and we can support that,
Yeah.
and help people recognize that what they're doing is valid, and not have, not thinking we have to have our fingers in the middle of everything.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say personally that I would say our generation is more or less just drowning with either the responsibility or debt or trying to figure out what's going on. And then when it comes to politics, it's generally just frustration or you agree with me and we're on the same page. There's not a whole bunch of action that we can be taking place. What can I do for you? You saying hi again?
Hi. I'm looking forward to you being in charge. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to you playing a role of making sure that we are on the right path,
absolutely. And
you and your friends.
yes. I worked for the Kane County clerk and I was writing up some reports on a one bid job. So they were going to pick this company already, but I just had to break down. It was like a 50-page report onto like maybe a page and a half. So it to me, I was like, hey, the small stuff is important as well, even though the general conversation is the big things that everyone's talking about. And that's when I spoke to you as well, that I used to focus on, oh, here's the big things. I'm not really making too many changes here, but when it comes to the local stuff, that's really how you get involved. And then if that's something that you know how to do, then you can slowly make change and actually figure out how that works. Now you mentioned that you were a commissioner in a city. Was that directly out of college, or when did that happen for you?
No, that was I think I was in my 40s.
Okay.
Um, and that was a really great place to grow up. I mean,
Okay.
I was 40 years old and I really learned how to grow up at that point.
Yeah.
I want to respond to the comment you just made.
Yeah.
In Montana, there's an organization that sets aside 2 weeks a year, 1 week for boys and 1 week for girls,
Okay.
and it's a program for them to run a mock government.
Oh, fun.
And I did it in high school, and my son got
Yeah.
to do it when he was in high school. And he came back from the weekend. I said, "Did you run for any positions? Did you do anything?" And he goes, "Mom, on the bus down there, we realized that there was already a coalition of people who had picked out the candidates and were already getting them run." So he said, "You know what I learned?" And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "I learned that you can get a heck of a lot done not being elected." He said
Okay.
it's much easier to work behind the scenes
Interesting.
and write the good bills
Yeah.
and 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 create coalitions, talk to people, get people to listen to your point.
Okay.
And so he got a lot of bills passed, but he wasn't in a position of being elected,
Interesting.
which I thought was interesting. And he recently actually did that as an adult.
He
He,
practiced.
he practiced and he wrote a bill and got a representative to sponsor it, and it was passed. And it was about landowner rights
Okay.
and 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 leases with oil and gas companies.
Okay.
And it's I just thought that was a really amazing life lesson that
Hmm.
would have totally escaped me.
Yeah.
Like I would have had to be the one making the posters and standing
Right.
around chanting and all that stuff and getting people excited about the candidate,
Hmm.
when the reality is that it's the people that are doing the work behind the scenes, really keeping stuff together.
Yeah. That's incredibly important, and I didn't think of that before. That's wonderful. So after college, where did we head from there?
I went to Boston for a year and worked at Massachusetts College of Art.
Okay.
In the process of getting a religious studies degree, I ended up getting a degree in fine arts,
Okay.
and I make art to this day.
Wonderful.
And I was able to attend lectures and seminars with some of the most amazing thinkers in terms of my world of academic study, which is in world religions. I got to attend lectures from by Joseph Campbell.
Okay. I know the name.
He's a mythologist. I got to attend a weekend workshop with James Hillman, who's
Okay.
a Jungian therapist. He actually ran the Jung Institute in Zurich. Um, when I was in college, I spent a month with Gary Snyder, the poet. He
Okay.
wrote a poem, or he wrote a play, and we performed it.
So when you're in the presence of these top people in the field, are you just sitting there soaking it all in? Are you asking questions? What's the environment?
Um, I think a little of each, but I have learned as I age that there are times that you can feel really challenged by an expert giving their opinion.
Yeah.
And the thing to do is if it's triggering, um, take a moment and try to see all sides and try to see the balance
Yeah.
and try to figure out exactly what their point is before asking questions. Oftentimes I would find myself asking questions basically to reinforce my opinion
Okay.
rather than really wanting to learn what they had to say.
Right.
Now that was a humbling moment.
I'd like to say I do a fairly good job of that, except for when I'm arguing with family. I'm like,
Oh
no,
yeah.
I'm correct. We should be on the same page here, and that page is mine.
Yeah, family's a whole nother thing. I don't know which philosopher said it, but they said if you think you're so smart and enlightened, spend a weekend with your family.
Hey, whoever that was very, very much correct.
Yes.
So after you were at the school in Boston for a year, where did we head from there?
I ended up back in Montana, and I married a farmer.
Oh,
I know, and I was on the farm for 25 years, and we successfully completed our marriage through a
hey,
divorce.
there you go.
But we're still great friends,
Yeah,
um, and my son is farming now, and so it's all good. It really is all about letting go of anger,
yeah,
letting go of things, and just being positive and as much as you can, and just
yeah,
operating from your heart.
yeah.
Leave the fear behind, dump the fear.
Yeah, my parents got divorced when I was in sixth or seventh grade, and my mom went through, I think, a year or two of just burning everything, as far as just like in the oven or on the grill. There was a lot of time just looking into space, just wondering what the hell happened. And over the last 15, 20 years, as they actually still worked together, and like the relationship had vastly improved, but um would not right away, but within time, things definitely got there. For you working on a farm, what was a day like for that?
Well, it would depend on the season, but during planting and stuff, we still did a lot of summer following.
Okay.
So I would I would pack my lunch for the day, which was breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Wow.
and I'd be on the tractor all day pulling a plow, a 60-foot plow. And once again, transparency. I'd have all the food eaten by 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Because you're sitting there, it's like, okay. And generally it was uneventful, but every once in a while I screwed up majorly. Spectacular screw up. Like I got the plow hooked on a fence, and I literally, my little ADHD world, I'm
Yeah.
happily thinking about, the cosmos or whatever. And I look behind me and there's a mile of fence line dragging on the back of the plow. I must say, in my defense, it was creating a beautiful design in the field. But I got to learn to how to, like, if I screwed up the clutch on a semi,
Yeah.
I got the opportunity to sit in the shop and learn how to fix it.
What an opportunity. That's
I
cool.
know it was great. And did it improve my clutch, my shifting? Not so much. I got to do it again the next year.
But you tried.
I tried.
So then what pushed you to run for local office? And then what did that local office include?
I was a county commissioner, and it included like mostly looking at how to allocate the tax base.
Okay.
But it also covered things like library services. It covered mental health. The thing that I was most excited about was economic development.
Okay.
And we were part of a 4 county group that would leverage our small populations and try to bring in businesses that would um, bring in opportunities for people to get jobs and also use local resources.
Okay.
Um, and oftentimes we also started lending money, and oftentimes we were the lender, not the county itself, but this group.
Yeah.
We're oftentimes the lender of last resort because some of the stuff was pretty risky.
Okay.
And so that was, it was trying to give local people an opportunity to start a business, maybe not just a Main Street business, but a manufacturing business
Okay.
or that type of thing. And also, we provided mental health services in the county, so that was another interesting aspect of working with several counties and offering it was like kind of a traveling therapist
Okay.
because this is a rural area and it was pretty hard to get a
Yeah.
full-time person. I think even in Montana at that point, we only had 7 psychiatrists in the state.
We got to
So
pump those numbers up.
yeah, we're getting crazier out here. We need more help.
I
Uh,
think as far as the mental health goes, there's a fair amount of physical tests that you can see, like do we have plaque in our heart? Do we have this? Do we have that? I feel like there should be similar tests for the mental side, but unfortunately, most of those tests are provided by the marketing company of a drug. So if we could have this test, then we could see like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not as mentally well as I thought I was. So instead of going over the edge, we understand that we might be looking over it. But something that's not talked about enough and consideration to physical health, I feel like mental health is also needs to be looked at as well.
exactly. And I also think that we oftentimes don't put in the equation the stresses culturally that we're dealing with.
Hmm.
And and there's so many ways in which, once again, the community is that, maybe the first line of defense in seeing that, Jane or Joe is struggling financially, and that's putting stress on the family, and there's more pressure with the kids, and so there's, I don't know, it's just, to me it still comes down to doing the best we can, and and being aware of our neighbors and know our neighbors, really
Yeah.
know our neighbors.
So
Um,
when you have you're the commissioner, are you looking to spend the amount that you get in from taxes, or are you like, hey, next year we're going to have to raise taxes, or we're bringing in enough money that we just have more people contributing? How do you handle what to do specifically with the money?
well, it's all determined by the mill levy, and during the time I was there had been a recent lawsuit, and our mill levy was capped. So we had to make sure that the budget operated in an artificial situation,
Okay.
and it continues to be a really challenging thing because you do have, um, like with schools are also a part of the tax for counties.
Okay.
For schools in Montana, they get A and B money for per student, so
Okay.
they get support from the state per student. And if those numbers fall, it gets harder and harder um, to operate your budget within those parameters, and you ask more and more of the community. And that was a really hard, I think that was one of the things that was really hard for people to see, is they support education and they really know and deeply understand why it's important, but it's really hard when you don't have a lot of say over how that money's being spent.
Is that just a bad calculation then when they lose X amount of people, or it's just it was meant for the top end numbers? Hey, this will work, but it just wasn't forecasted. What if the numbers go down?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. And it's also, more and more people are homeschooling,
Hmm.
which is a choice and an important one for parents. And that really puts more pressure um, on the county providing education. And
Okay.
the problem is that the public schools are also saddled with the building, you know,
Okay.
the maintenance of the building, the needing of a new boiler, all the things that, um, I mean, the number one thing should be being able to pay good salaries to the teachers. But some years, the number one problem is the building needs a new roof,
Oh
or
no.
the gym needs a new floor.
Yeah.
And sports are important. I mean, that sports in these small communities that I grew up in, I mean, that was a time where people could get together as a community. There were no, it wasn't like the Catholics sit on this side
Right.
and the Lutherans sit here. It's, everybody showing up and supporting the kids.
Yeah.
It's teaching the kids all the things that you learn in sports, and I know you know that well.
Mhm.
And it's also the kids' opportunity to go to other schools and play sports in other places,
Yeah.
meeting other kids. And in many cases, in our small rural areas, we were seeing people develop lifelong friendships
Hmm.
from a kid that that they were competing with in sports,
Yeah.
and also speech and drama. I mean,
Okay.
those, that type of thing too. But
That sounds wonderful. And you mentioned something about risky loans. This we'll try to make it a two-part, not a three-part question. Um, would you be able to do non-risky loans and just have like better pricing than banks? And then how did the risky loans go for you guys?
sometimes they were great, and then we created a revolving loan fund so that when the money came in from the loans, that money was then free to loan to another business.
Okay.
So we weren't making we weren't looking at it as a profit motive, but as a community building, as an economic development opportunity.
Okay.
And and so there were some loans that were doing great, and those were, supporting and sustaining the revolving loan, and others um, that may be struggling. But the state also had, the Department of Commerce also had these programs that they would bring somebody in,
Yeah.
and there were opportunities for people to learn better practices.
Okay.
Um, I took one of the classes on understanding the profit and loss sheet.
Okay.
And I mean, I was almost 50 years old, and it was like, whoa, if I take $1 out of my business, I have to come up with $11 to replace that.
Yeah.
It's like decisions that you make that seem harmless
Right.
can really cause a lot of stress on your production or whatever. So that was a really great thing. And I give kudos to the state of Montana Department of Commerce. That was in like 2010 or so.
Awesome.
They actually bought that program and taught it to people.
Oh, very cool. So for why would people go with a traditional bank if you guys were available?
I think we were seen as the last opportunity.
Okay.
We really encourage people to, to go to the local bank, and, if their business was really, they really had a lot of confidence in it,
Yeah.
and our committees agreed, then we'd move forward. One of the ones that seemed like a little weird at first was a taxidermy business. Weird from my perspective.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. People like those heads on the wall.
Yep.
And and then it turned out that the guy was expanding his vision and wanting to start a school to teach people how to do that.
Oh, I thought just like like a private school or something, and he that on the side, but
Right? No, but it's a
or
school
taxidermy.
for
Gotcha.
taxidermy. And actually, the thing that was so funny to me is a few years later, an artist I knew actually went and took taxidermy classes to understand the anatomy of the
Yeah.
animals that she was sculpting.
Hmm.
And specifically, she did fish, which apparently is a real tricky
I
thing with
feel like that'd
taxidermy.
be tough.
I can't believe I'm talking to you about taxidermy, which I know nothing about.
Hey, we're
But
on the same page. We're on the same page.
but I thought it was a really cool thing that the guy is like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a limit I recognize in my business.
Yeah.
And and I have a hard time getting people to work with me. So maybe if I start a little school, I can
So,
train people.
so were your rates just higher then for than any of the other banks around?
I think I'm starting to not remember the specifics. Um, but it was I don't even know if that still exists
Yeah.
in the program. Uh, but it was just maybe at the very least an experiment in keeping money in the counties, like if that
Absolutely.
that revolving loan fund kept
Yeah.
moving and it kept funding um, parts of a business or an idea or whatever.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it was like one of the things that was on the slate for getting help was a meat processing plant. And the reality is, we live in Montana. People grow cows for meat,
Yeah.
and there's always a need for processing. I will confess, and I hope I don't get poison pen letters, but my son raised pigs
Yeah.
in high school to get him put himself through college,
Yeah.
and he ended up with like $5,000 in loan at the end of 4 years.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so you get creative about things and you grow pigs.
Yeah.
But they are it's hard. It's really hard. I fell in love with every one of them.
Oh,
I had
fun stuff.
I had to pretend that they were going to college, not my kid. But it was hard then to find a local person to process the meat because back in the 50s,
Yeah.
it was likely that a farmer would have a meat processing plant on their land and they
Yeah.
would process other people's meat. Well, that's coming around again. And
Really?
in the area that my son lives in, there are in a county of like 2,000 people, there are two people offering meat processing.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean it's local. There's no shipping. You know exactly what the animal has eaten. You know where the animal was drinking its water. It's just I don't know, bringing things back down to a level of local.
Well, and I feel like as far as everyone's worried about the AI taking our jobs and things of that nature, and the money being siphoned even more upwards to the CEOs and those businesses, that a lot of things can be done locally, and the money that's spent locally is going to stay local. And it's very tough when I see, like, obviously I still use Chase, but like a lot of banks, I think a credit union, that I don't think they sell our loans. I think they have to kind of stay on the system of like, we have this amount of money, we're going to loan this, and we stay in these parameters. I just feel like that's a much better system, that there's not greed involved to create a bubble.
Yeah.
And I just think it's those things, like you said, bringing it back to the community. Uh-oh, don't show my dog that. Oh. She's passed out right here. Oh, that is that how we started? What kind of dog do you have?
I have she's a rescue, but the person who bred her as a lurcher, which is a cattle dog hound mix, and it was actually originated in the 1500s in England
Yeah,
as the peasants the king owned all the land and they bred these fast dogs,
yeah.
run in, grab a rabbit, and that led to rabbit stew for hungry serfs.
Well, I remembered that you mentioned that, and I was like, oh, there's the dog, Polly. She's like, I'm gonna sleep, Polly, right here. Can I have a kiss? She's like, no, up, up. You gotta pet me first, sir. But this is who was at the house.
Oh, I didn't get to see this pup.
Yeah,
Oh, look at you.
she's
Hi, baby.
yeah, we'll be back in Montana soon.
Oh,
So to round things out, we'll definitely have to have a part two soon. But we'll end with the last two questions that everybody gets.
okay.
What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Health to me is being able to get through the day in an optimal way and to be able to achieve all the things I want to in a day, which is, walking to the park and back, or, um, you know, uh, bending over and picking up 50 pounds of clay. Just and it's also, once again, living from the heart,
Yeah.
being in love with every minute of my day.
Hmm. I love that. And then what's something from your life that the people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Um, okay.
Take your time. Take your time.
I guess I would say that, once again, I really try um to I try to see something intriguing in everything I do.
Hmm.
And so today I had to run into the post office, which is a couple miles away, and the state road crew was clearing rocks that had fallen from a rock cut.
Okay.
And so it was like, oh my gosh, how amazing is that? And getting really excited about the equipment, and even if it's something I don't understand, I really feel like I it's important to maintain a curiosity.
Hmm.
And if that hits the wall immediately, fine, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And learn the difference between a 3/4 inch and a 5/8 inch wrench.
There we go. Got to remember that. Thank you
Ta
so
ta.
much. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. This has been great. And hello to Dax.
Jack.
And
Yep.
I look forward to you coming to Montana again.
Absolutely.